This episode was brought to you by Pen Tester Academy, the leader in online cybersecurity education. Join over 10,000 professionals from 90 countries to learn security online. Also brought to you by Hacker Arsenal, artillery for cyber warriors. Visit us on hackerarsenal.com to check out our latest attack defense gadgets. I'm Marley Oxenome from Pen Tester Academy TV, and welcome to our show, Access Point, where we spotlight cybersecurity companies and give an inside look at the people and technology behind the latest advancements in the industry. Today, I will be speaking with the company Balbix. I'm sitting down right now with Mukul Kumar, who is CISO and VP of Cyber Practice at the company. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. I've got a lot of great questions here from our tech team, so you ready to get started?
Let's roll it out.
All right. Okay, so can you tell us the founding story of Balbix? What would the elevator pitch be?
The biggest problem in the security industry is that it's very reactive. The security team gets events or issues on a daily basis on which they act. So the thought process and the mindset for the Balbix team was to make this a change in the thought process of security industry and security practitioner and security teams. Rather than be reactive, our approach was to be more proactive, fix things before they go wrong. So that's the fundamental thought process of Balbix platform itself. Okay. For the elevator pitch, I would say consider us as a minority report of cybersecurity, or some people like to call us as Google of cybersecurity. You can search for anything that might go wrong. So the best analogy that I can connect the dots here would be when you go out to see a doctor to find out what's wrong with the body. Doctor doesn't bleed you to death to find out what's wrong with the body. So think about if they put you into a good CT scan machine and they can do 10,000 different observations and come back with an accurate assessment that this is really bad with your body. That's exactly what we do at Balbix.
Okay. And so now, how is breach risk assessment different from threat hunting?
Threat hunting is more for the threats which are already known in the market that you go out and discover in your enterprise. Breach risk assessment is more of a proactive approach where you are analyzing your assets, your users, your network traffic on a regular basis, and you come up with a risk score based on many different attributes of the users, many different attributes of the application, many different attributes of the assets. You would not be worried about a kiosk system more than any other important system in your enterprise for a domain controller, an exchange server, or something important. So that's what the difference from a breach risk assessment. It's a continuous, it's ongoing, rather than going out and hunting for specific threats that are already known in the market.
Okay, got it. And so now I know your website says that you use predictive analytics and AI to uncover risks. So for the uninitialized among us, can you please explain what predictive analytics are and how your product uses it?
Predictive analytics is more to understand the priors, what has already happened in the past, and to understand the behavior of the assets, behavior of the users, behavior of the network traffic. And that's what we try to do. We try to create the holistic picture and connect the dot, create the network fabric in such a fashion that we won't be able to find the deviation from the standard. And that's where the predictive analytics and AI engine helps. That's what differentiates Balbix than any other technology out in the market.
Okay, wonderful. And so now I know, every week we hear about another company getting breached or hacked. Why do you think even with so many security products out there, breaches are still happening so frequently?
That's an interesting question and an important question for us to, as a practitioner, to answer. Think about it. Me being a CISO in the previous organization, we have so many tools, but still things would get missed or get unnoticed at this point in time. And the biggest thing, what I would say, the companies are not doing the basics first. Neither they know what their assets are, nor they have any mechanism to even identify where their assets are. What are the important data that they are trying to protect? So that's the biggest challenge. And I think that's the reason why companies get breached, because they don't know what assets they have in the environment, what risk those assets are bringing to the environment. And they don't have a mechanism to even know about it. So I think that's, again, going back to the basics. If we fix the basics and we optimize the basics and keep doing that, know where the assets are, know where data is, keep the system up to date, patch them. If we just do that, I would assume the number of breach happening in the market would go down.
We could hope at least.
We could hope at least, yeah.
Well, that actually leads into my next question. Why don't you think most companies use 24/7 breach risk monitoring?
The reason, what I can think of, it's expensive, it's hard, and it's labor intensive.
Okay.
You only have a finite number of people, a finite number of resources, finite budget.
Of course.
On a yearly basis. And 24/7 breach risk monitoring is expensive. And there are no other tools, I would say, in the market. There are tools in the market that can do a point-specific risk assessment, and that's what we call the vulnerability assessment. But there is no such tool that can holistically look at the entire landscape, the assets, the user, the network traffic, and connect the dot for somebody like myself to analyze, like, what's the risk overall looks like for the enterprise in terms of the breach propagation. If something gets compromised, how would be the impact of that compromise? So it's hard. Human resource might not be able to do it at the speed that what we are doing. We try to optimize this thing on a daily basis. We can continuously run it. We can do the optimized performance-wise to do it on a continuous, regular basis.
Okay. And so now I know that ransomware attacks have also been skyrocketing lately. Can Balbix's product help with this? And if so, how?
Balbix would definitely be able to help. Our dashboard is really useful in that sense. It's a clickable and searchable dashboard.
Okay.
So let's take an example of the latest ransomware that came out, Petya, NotPetya, that was one of those. The biggest challenge in my position, or somebody like in my position, my peers, I would say, when these things comes out in the market or hits the security industry, we don't know what would the impact of these ransomware in our organization.
Right.
And in my previous life, I remember we had to run the query. We had to wait for hours to come back, the results to come back. And it used to take anywhere between, I would say, 8 to 24 hours to get that report back
whole
from
day.
yes, practically a whole day. So that was the lesson learned for us. That's what we have implemented at Balbix. It's a clickable and searchable. Think about a human search query that you can type into the dashboard. What's my risk to Petya? And what are the devices, what are the assets, what are the user impacted with those specific string of malware, specific strings of botnet, whatever that might be out in the market. So yes, Balbix would be very helpful in that. At a click of a button, at a click of a query, you would be able to see what's impacted in your organization. And that's a very powerful feature.
Okay, wonderful. And so now I know that because of BYOD, there are so many different devices on a network. How does Balbix overcome the challenge of monitoring and assessing such diverse networks?
Yeah, BYOD brings interesting challenge for security team, especially. So what we do from a Balbix perspective, we try to connect the dots for the user, for the asset, and then on the network topology and the network fabric as well. So let's take an analogy. If somebody joins to a network, they have a name, they have an asset, they have an IP address to it. So our sensor sitting onto the network would be able to see a new device coming up on the network, and we would be able to do characterization and categorization of those devices. We would see, okay, this is a IoT, is it a laptop, is it a workstation, or is it a server? That's the first thing we do. And then we go a little deeper because we are sitting on the span port of the core switch or whatever switch that traffic is traversing through. We then try to connect the dots of the user asset to the traffic which is traversing through it. And that gives us a very deep level of information about that asset, what that asset is, how vulnerable that asset is, what are the vulnerabilities that can lead to a breach if that BYOD ideally should not be connected to the corporate network, but if that happens, what would be the impact of it? The engineering team has done a very amazing job of identifying if a BYOD device gets connected to a corporate, that levels up the risk higher for that specific device into the dashboard. So that's also a very powerful feature. We are working towards alerting mechanism where a BYOD device coming into the corporate side would be able to alert, would be able to highlight the risk on the dashboard, so that people who are responsible for those BYOD or security team, like my team or myself, we would be able to identify what those BYOD devices are doing on the corporate network, and we can just kick them out or quarantine them or do whatever is needed at that point in time.
Nice. And so now when you show an organization its risk dashboard, do you find that they tend to ignore medium and low risk items? And if they do, why do you think that?
Yeah, they do it. The answer is simple, because they don't have enough time, enough energy, enough money, effort and money. That ultimately boils down to that. Because if you say, Mukul, now you have 2000 server Petya vulnerability, that malware that came out, you have to patch your system overnight. Like, okay.
Yep.
I don't know what to do in this case, because typically a security team is not in the position of ownership of the infrastructure or the application. Yeah, we are the cops, but we don't have guns with us to take care of that. So that's one of the biggest reasons why these medium and low risk items never gets cleared out. So for Balbix, the biggest thing is we can prioritize that. We can help the security team or the patching team to take care of those devices, those assets, those applications based on their value to the organization. Either it could be a business value or it could be an application requirement value, meaning that that application is really important for the organization, or it's a key part of the critical infrastructure. So we look at all those attributes of the application based off number of users accessing it, what kind of traffic traversing through it, what kind of users are accessing those specific application. So we do all these things in the back end, and that's how the criticality of the asset comes up. And based on that, Balbix dashboard would be able to prioritize that. That will make it easier for the audiences, the security team or the infrastructure team to consume that. At that point in time, we might be able to see, you don't have to worry about your low or medium assets. You don't have to worry about it, because there is a reason behind it. Those are not important. Those are either disconnected, isolated, or completely off the grid, that you don't have to worry about right now.
And at least you can provide a reason for not.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Wonderful.
So you will have more energy to focus on the key assets rather than everything else.
Okay, makes sense.
Yep.
And lastly, any last interesting things that you'd like to highlight about the company?
We have a couple of few interesting features, I would say, in our platform that is really important, and I think that has helped me. That was one of the pain points that I had in the past. The first one was the inventory system. The biggest challenge was we didn't know at any given point in time what was connected in the network. So think about a visibility question. Yes, I cannot imagine any of the CISOs would say with his name and stamp on it that they know exactly how many assets they have on their network. I can challenge that. It would be really interesting to see how many would raise their hand and say, yes, I know exactly about everything in my network. That never happens. That's what we have done. The first thing, that it's the best inventory system I can ever think of. The characterization and categorization is so immensely tested out and thorough that we can identify anything in the network. Any asset which has an IP address can be characterized. Whether it's an IoT, it's a fridge connecting to your internet, it's a microwave, everything. We take some pride in doing that. Our engineering team has done an amazing job into that. That's something that we are really proud of. The other thing I would like to highlight was related to the search. The dashboard is really clickable and searchable. You can click for the user, you can click for a machine name. What we are leaning towards a Google-like search.
Yeah, really simple user interface.
Exactly.
Wonderful.
Just think about a normal English word, and you would be able to. We just joke around and sometimes, what should we do? So that could be a search query into that part as well. But yeah, that's a very strong and very useful feature for all different teams. So the infrastructure, application, security team. One more thing that comes to mind, which is one of the biggest feature for people like myself or other CISOs that would be really helpful. Board of Directors slides. The biggest challenge, fortunately, I didn't have that challenge earlier because the board was really supportive of our cybersecurity initiative at my previous organization. But what Balbix has done, we have a Board of Directors slide ready for consumption that you can, at a click of a button, you can download that Board of Directors slides that you can take it to the Board of Directors or to a mass distribution. That will give a holistic picture of the enterprise, where you were when Balbix was first installed, and Balbix predictive breach risk platform gave you risk insights. And once you start fixing those risk insights, the posture starts getting stronger. So you can visually see that over a period of time with a slide bar, that how your posture has increased over a period of time. And that's a very powerful feature because that takes time for different teams to collectively provide that input.
Yeah. So they get a full timeline view.
Exactly. Wow. It's like a timeline view when you started with Balbix and where you stand right now after fixing. For example, we came in here in January. We said 10 things are wrong. Do these 10 things to optimize your security posture. And as you start fixing it, you'll start seeing that the color red starts going towards yellow, and ultimately it goes towards green.
Yeah.
So that gives us, the board of director, a direct translation of the budget and the money and the important stuff spent out, what it brings to the table for board of director. Otherwise, it's a very manual effort to collectively get that information onto a presentation. So I think that's a very strong and a very useful feature.
That's an incredible feature.
Oh, thank you.
Great.
Incredible. Yeah, kudos to the team.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for speaking with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And that's all the time we have for today, so be sure to tune in next time for another episode of Access Point. Also, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook so you don't miss out on any of the latest cybersecurity news. This episode is brought to you by Pen Tester Academy, the leader in online cybersecurity education. Join over 10,000 professionals from 90 countries to learn security online. Also brought to you by Hacker Arsenal, artillery for cyber warriors. Visit us on hackerarsenal.com to check out our latest attack defense gadgets. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.